4,500 years ago, one of the largest civilizations on Earth built great cities of brick, with grid-planned streets, indoor toilets, and covered sewers more advanced than anything that would exist again for thousands of years. It stretched across an area larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. And yet we don't know what its people called themselves, who ruled them, or how to read a single word they wrote. This is the Indus Valley, the greatest ancient civilization you were probably never taught about, and almost everything about it is a mystery. Around 2600 BC, while the Egyptians were raising pyramids, an enormous civilization flourished along the Indus River, in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. We call it the Indus Valley, or Harappan civilization, and for its time it was staggeringly advanced. At its height it may have had over 1 million people spread across more than 1,000 settlements. And here's the strange part. For thousands of years, the world completely forgot it existed. It vanished so thoroughly that when railway workers in the 1800s found its ancient bricks, they simply ground them up to build a railroad. It wasn't until the 1920s that archaeologists realized those bricks belonged to a lost civilization as old and as great as any on Earth. The two greatest cities we've found are called Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, and walking through them, even in ruins, is uncanny, because they don't look ancient, they look planned. The streets run in a precise grid, crossing at right angles, oriented to the compass. The buildings were made of standardized kiln-fired bricks, and astonishingly, the bricks were the same proportions across the entire civilization in cities hundreds of miles apart. Someone, somehow, had standardized construction across an empire-sized area. But the real shock is the plumbing. Many homes had their own bathrooms and toilets connected to a network of covered drains running beneath the streets, a city-wide sanitation system. 4,500 years ago. This was a level of public hygiene that wouldn't be matched in Europe until well into the modern era. These people had clean water and working sewers while much of the rest of the world was still living in mud. And at the heart of Mohenjo-daro sits one of its greatest puzzles. A large, watertight, sunken brick pool we call the Great Bath. We still don't know exactly what it was for, perhaps a ritual cleansing site. But it tells us these people care deeply about water, cleanliness, and order. Hold on to that idea of order, because what's missing from these cities is even stranger than what's there. When archaeologists dig up an ancient civilization, they expect to find certain things. Towering palaces for kings, grand temples to the gods, giant statues of rulers, monuments to great victories in war. In Egypt and Mesopotamia, these things are everywhere. In the Indus Valley, they're almost entirely absent. We've found no royal palaces, no giant statues of god-kings, no great temples we can clearly identify, and perhaps most striking of all, very little sign of war. Almost no weapons designed for fighting other humans. No depictions of armies, no battle scenes, no mounds of slaughtered enemies. For a civilization this large and this wealthy, the near-total absence of warfare and god-kings is extraordinary. It's led some scholars to wonder whether the Indus people built something genuinely different. A society that wasn't organized around a single all-powerful ruler and constant war, but around trade, craft, and shared standards. We can't prove that, but the evidence is suggestive. Their cities show relatively little difference between the richest and poorest homes compared to other ancient civilizations. They had standardized weights and measures so precise and so consistent across the whole region that trade and administration must have been remarkably organized. This was a civilization that seems to have run not on the fear of a king, but on an almost obsessive sense of order and fairness in everyday life. And the more you look at it, the more modern and the more mysterious it feels. But here is the deepest mystery of all, the one that keeps the Indus Valley locked away from us. They left writing. Thousands of small carved seals and tablets covered in a script of elegant symbols. We have hundreds of these inscriptions, and we cannot read a single one of them. The Indus script has never been deciphered. We don't even know for certain what language it recorded. The inscriptions are frustratingly short, usually just a few symbols, with no long texts and, so far, no equivalent of a Rosetta Stone to unlock them. So the voices of this entire civilization are sealed in silence. Their laws, their beliefs, their stories, even their name for themselves. All of it is sitting right in front of us, written down and completely unreadable. And then, around 1900 BC, they faded away. The great cities were gradually abandoned. For a long time, people imagined a dramatic invasion, but most scholars now point to something quieter and more familiar. A changing climate, shifting monsoon patterns and rivers that changed course or dried up may have slowly undermined the agriculture that fed the cities. There was likely no single catastrophe, just a slow unraveling as the environment that made this civilization possible turned against it. So this is what we're left with, a civilization that may have housed 1 million people, that built the cleanest cities of the ancient world, that seems to have thrived for centuries with little sign of kings or war, and that we still cannot hear because we cannot read its words. The Indus Valley is a reminder of how much of our own story is still missing. An entire chapter of human civilization, advanced and peaceful and vast, is sitting in museums around the world right now, waiting for someone to finally crack its code and let it speak. If forgotten worlds fascinate you, subscribe. Next time, we travel to a city that dared to challenge Rome itself and was wiped so completely off the map that its very name became a warning. Carthage.